Chapter 16. They woke early, the moon still in the sky. They had taken the SUV on a trailer with 2 motorbikes for rough terrain. "What's this?" Tracker said, walking around, passing his hand over the sleek motorcycles. "The silver one is mine. The blue one is yours," Hunter said, climbing behind the wheel of the SUV. He stuck his head out of the window. "We don't have much time. You two can get acquainted later. I hope you know I've never ridden a motorcycle before." "Are you nervous?" Hunter questioned with a raised eyebrow. "Hell no. I'm a Samsa. We will try anything once." Hunter glanced to his right at Tracker. "Maybe twice." And he shot Hunter a slanted smile. "Did I ever tell you about the time Thorn and I met this chick? We didn't know she was a panther shifter. He had never seen one before." He smiled, remembering the time. "Well, let me tell you. She was a rough one." Hunter glanced over, very much interested, because his teen years had been stolen from him when he was kidnapped and left to die in Alaska, because of a vendetta against his father. "We were hardly yearlings. Nothing but pups. We climbed out of the window and stole into town." "Did I tell you we stole Father's favorite truck too?" he asked Hunter. "No. I think I heard the story, but Thorn or Damon forgot that little detail. That shifter club had just opened, and this hot shifter in black leather pants with studs for a necklace picked us up. Neither of us had ever had sex before. Hell, we never even saw a woman's opening. This panther shifter took us back to her place and worked on both of us. When she reached for Thorn's cock and put it in her mouth, he freaked. He thought she was trying to bite it off." "Yeah. I'd say you two were as green as you get," Hunter added, laughing, remembering his first time. "Thorn picked her up and threw her against the wall. She shifted and kicked our asses. When we got out of there with our lives, we limped back home. It was a good thing Mother was sleeping soundly, but we met Father in the kitchen having a late-night snack. He looked up and laughed and said, 'You two look like you just got your asses kicked by a werepanther.' Now, how did he know that?" "It could be, because it happened to him before," Hunter added. "I didn't think about that at the time, but you could be right." Traveling in a car proved to be more practical than traveling by foot. By staying on the highway, they could get better signals for their phones. The past night, Tracker had pinpointed the area where Brian's house stood. The only problem was there were no maps showing where the house was in that particular area. Instead, it showed the Tahoe National Forest with no structures on the grounds. That area wasn't supposed to have a house on it, because it belonged to the state of Nevada, and if it did, it would be a rest area. "Are you sure it's in the middle of this forest?" Hunter said, pulling into a park off the highway. He stepped out of the car and looked around. Nothing but thick brush and pine trees blotting out the view from below as well as above. "I can only go by the Google map," Tracker said, stepping out and gazing around. "Those maps have been known to be wrong, and that's why you're here, Tracker, to find her, so do your job." Hunter raised his voice in impatience. He knew he had taken too much time off to go after Haley. Anything could happen to her, his mind said to him. Once the lion discovers his 2 sons are dead, he could kill her out of revenge. Hunter turned to Tracker. "We need to find her within the hour. Can you do that?" "I will find her, if you don't let your emotions get in the way. I've got this." They returned to the SUV and jumped in. Driving for hours in silence, they came to the end of a road. "We need to get out. From what I saw on the map, and from what my instincts tell me, we will have to look for the house. It doesn't show up anywhere on this map. All that's showing are miles and miles of forest and not homes, not unless they are hidden somewhere," Tracker said to Hunter. "Get me to the lake." "He will be somewhere near a lake," Hunter said with a hopeful voice. What are we to do about the SUV and motorcycles? We'll need them to outrun that lion. You mean? Yes. You will have to learn how to ride it, or you will have to outrun him. I think I can outrun him. He's an old lion, Tracker said as he stepped out of his clothes. You have been misinformed. Where did you get your information? Lions can live for 14 years, but a lion shifter isn't old until he's 80. That lion shifter is a mature lion, and he can outrun you and me, and has the strength of your father, mine, and Uncle Drayton, Hunter said. He's no match for the two of us, Tracker said, raising his hard arms and making a fist. Tracker possessed the confidence of a young, unseasoned werewolf. He made a show of flexing his muscles, where his tattoos were prominent and on display. Like I said, he's old compared to you and me. Hunter just shook his head. He didn't like wasting words or time with Tracker's boasting. When Tracker stopped talking and began shifting, Hunter was ready. Which way? To the east, Tracker said, rushing behind Hunter. There was no way Tracker was as fast as Hunter. His breathing grew loud, his tongue lolled out of his mouth as he tried to catch him. He wasn't built for running, he was built like solid steel, a huge chest filled with muscles. Wilder was the quickest of all the brothers, and Hunter was Wilder's son. Finally, Hunter stopped to let Tracker catch up. We have been running for miles. I hear nothing but a waterfall, Hunter said, not breaking a sweat. You said to get you near water. The lake will be somewhere around here, Tracker said, breathing in and out. This time Tracker took the lead, because he smelled embers of burning wood. Hunter smelled it too. It wasn't long before they reached the lake house towering over a lake. Built with tall redwoods and surrounded by pine trees, making a carpet with their dry rustic dead leaves. It's as you said. Near a lake. Quiet, Tracker. He can't hear us and smell us. Tracker reached into his pouch and handed Hunter a spray. Hunter gazed at it and shook his head. It's pine. What? He said, responding to Hunter's doubtful gaze. I told you I got this. He would expect us to smell like an animal, and I wasn't sure what kind dwell in this forest. Okay. Now can we kill that lion and get Haley out of there? They crept closer to the house. Haley is here. I smell her, Hunter said. He became cautious, because he didn't see anyone. His mind told him that the lion shifter was using Haley as bait. They waited, and didn't see or hear any movement coming from the house. What do you think is happening, Hunter? Hunter exhaled. He wants us to go in there. It could be a trap, but that's just what I'm going to do. You can come or you can stay. I don't know if I can win this fight, even with both of us on him, but I have to try. I promised Haley I would keep her safe. I made a pledge to her when I asked her to marry me. It's not whether I have to go in there. He looked at Tracker not with fear. He knew no fear. That was lost when he'd shed his childhood as a pup and became a yearling in Alaska. I alone have to go. You don't have to, Hunter said, giving Tracker a way out. I'm a Samsa werewolf. We don't shy away from a fight. We embrace it. If this doesn't kill me, it will make me strong. He hit Hunter on the shoulder with a closed fist. Hunter braced himself for the blow, because he knew the power of Tracker's arm. Tracker, the firstborn of Lysel, had grown the tallest and more muscular of his 6 sons. His strength had increased every day, because of the regimen Lysel put him and the others under. They were cutting down trees, building structures as pups, tracking, chasing, and bringing down a moose when they were young. Hunter and Tracker reached the deck of the house, and still there was no motion from within. But they both smelled the human scent. Tracker was ready to break down the door. Wait. Let's try this instead. Hunter reached slowly and quietly for the handle, and the door opened. They stood back waiting for an attack that never came. The doors wide where they both could enter at the same time, and they proceeded slowly. Hunter facing the front and Tracker at his back. "If he was here, he would be on us by now," Hunter said, his voice low. The place was dark, except for a light coming from a bedroom in the back of the mansion. They moved slowly to the room, stood to listen, and then opened the door quickly. That was when they got a whiff of Haley's scent. Tracker picked up a towel lying in the bathroom on a bench. He handed it to Hunter. Hunter brought it to his nose. "It's her." He stood looking around at the bedroom. It was the master bedroom. Why was she in the master bedroom? Maybe Katy had told the truth, he thought. Maybe she went with him willingly? The jealousy that plagued the werewolves in his family wasn't doing him any favors. It just made him weak with suspicion. He had to put that behind him. Werewolves aren't jealous, Hunter tried to tell himself. Those emotions are for men. Nothing here but clothes she wore. I'll take them with me. Where to? Tracker asked. We're going to San Francisco. Don't ask any questions now, and we're taking the motorcycles. This time, don't let me forget the bow and arrow. Hey, I can't do everything, Tracker said, raising his hands. He appeared disappointed, because the shifter wasn't there. He was just young enough where he wanted to test himself against Brian. Hunter was old enough and experienced enough to know that it was a good day, a day where they didn't come into contact with the lion shifter, because if they did, it might be their last. Chapter 17. When the car pulled to a stop, Brian stepped out and rushed to open the car door for Haley. She looked up at him, his deep-set golden eyes searching her face in the moonlight. Thank you. I feel better now that I've eaten. I don't know why I wanted a hamburger and a malt, she smiled broadly. I had to have one. Have you ever had that feeling? She said, stepping out onto the driveway. Yes. I know that feeling, Brian said, his voice filled with intense desire, his hand unusually warm, even though the night brought with it a fall chill. Haley shivered, and he placed his long arms around her to usher her into the house. She felt nothing from his touch, but Brian felt it all. The pleasure of having her near him brought on a flood tide of lust, coupled with sweet agony, having her near, but not being able to mate with her, trying to hold back his animalistic tendencies and prove to Haley that he was as human as she was. This alone tested him. How long would it take before his nature would take over, and he would have her on all fours, her pretty young ass in the air before him, and he would be bending over her, his cock quivering to enter her. As the line shifter stepped up to the stairs, he sensed that someone had been in the house. He stopped in his tracks. Haley looked around and up to him. She saw his eyes searching around and heard his intake of air, but the smell of pine trees confused his senses. If it had been humans or shifters trying to disguise their smell with that of an animal, Brian would have been onto them in a second. However, there hung over the home a thick smell of pine. Tracker's method had worked. A closed smile rose on the lion's face, and he safely walked to the door. If he had come back a half hour earlier, he would have met Hunter and Tracker. Looking at Haley as he opened the door, he said, I have never felt more like a man than I have with you. That could have been both good and bad for Haley. Bad, because he would do anything to have her and keep her. Good, because she could reason with him, show him that she was too young for him, and she would make him miserable. I'm tired. It's probably that large hamburger. Have you ever seen anything that big? No, I haven't. He gave out a chuckle. Not a heavy one, but an easy one she had seen come from her father. His laugh made him appear human to Haley. That kid made it just for you. He liked you too. You're a beautiful girl. The lion shifter placed ringlets of her hair behind her ear. He clutched her face in his large hands. I want you, Haley, but I'm willing to wait. I need you to see that I'm not a beast. I'm a man. But he wasn't a man. He was an imitation of a man. A shifter pretending to be a man. It showed in his way of dress. Brian wore expensive suits and shoes, and affected an easy manner. Not prone to violence. When most men dressed in jeans and flannel shirts in the area, he wore a pair of slacks and a dress shirt. His clothes weren't ordinary. They were made of the finest silk and cotton. Brian never looked or felt relaxed. What Haley admired about the werewolves, they knew who they were. They didn't try to fit in with humans. The humans came to them and embraced them, and they were welcomed, and they kept the Samsa's secrets, the secret that they were perhaps the last of the werewolf packs in the Americas. The last hierarchy of true shifters. But they were coming back, and they would be as plentiful and a force to deal with if Wilder had his way. I'm too tired. I feel like I will faint away, Haley said. No sooner had the words fallen from her lips, her eyes fluttered and her lids closed, and she did. When Haley woke, she was lying in the master bedroom, with the lion shifter sitting by her side, in a chair pulled close to the bed. I don't know what to do. I could have taken you to a hospital, but it's miles away and I didn't want to risk moving you. I'm fine. I'll be okay, Haley said to Brian, who was confused by her sudden illness. He thought it had been the trek through the forest, and the stress of everything he had taken her through. She glanced down. I have nothing on. Did you do that? Brian didn't say a word. He tucked her in bed, stood and walked to the door, then he turned back and said, Don't worry. I wouldn't take you without your permission, and especially if you're a reluctant mate. I want you to accept me. I want you desiring me and receptive when I make love to you. The shifter suddenly remembered what it was he was going to do. What would you like to eat for breakfast in the morning? I like cereal and milk. Maybe some fruit. Any particular kind of cereal? Oh. Special K. I'll see if we have some. We should. Brian closed the door behind him and headed to the kitchen. He didn't know what was in there. He had no use for that kind of food. Raw meat of any kind, especially beef, would be in the fridge because it was all that had been in his diet. He opened the large double-door fridge. There was milk. He didn't know if it was from a cow, a goat, or any number of animals, but it was milk. Then he opened the pantry, and to his surprise there was an assortment of cereals. He thumbed through the boxes and found Haley's cereal. His son had followed his orders to the letter. He had informed him that they would have human females as guests, and their diets were different from shifters. For some reason, the son, although just a cub, had known what to buy. Maybe because he is closer to their age, Brian thought. When he completed his check for breakfast items for Haley, he stood looking out at the lake, and the moonlight casting a white glow on the water. The night was calling to him, and he had to obey. Brian enjoyed roaming the forest at night. There was one reason why he disliked city living and living in a suburban area: very few opportunities to run free. When he left Haley sleeping, he knew where there was a patch of dewberries. He would bring her the fresh fruit, because the grapes and oranges in the bowl sitting in the kitchen were overripe and soft, and Haley wanted fresh fruit with her breakfast, and he wanted to make sure she had what she wanted. Brian searched the forest happily and found the dewberries. He returned hours later to his lake house to find her sleeping soundly. After taking a shower, he stoked the fire and sat near it. He fell asleep looking into it, thinking he was at most peace in the forest, and with this young woman. His eyes opened and there she was standing, looking down at him. Why hadn't he felt her presence? He questioned himself. Why are you sleeping there? A bed would be more comfortable. Not really, he said with a wide yawn, and raising his powerful arms out to the side. You know it's not safe to stand over it. Brian didn't continue. He didn't want to frighten her. He didn't want her to know that if she surprised him for some reason, out of instinct, he might have hit her with one powerful hand, and that would be the end to her. Knowing this about himself, he tried to control that predatory instinct in him. Haley drew the need to control, conquer, and destroy out of him. She made him want to be a man, and leave the life of a lion shifter behind, leave his pride, let the females take care of everything. They had all the money they could ever need. His sons would protect them. There was no need for him to be with them. He could start all over with Haley. This was the notion of a man in love, not a lion shifter. He wouldn't be the first shifter to get caught up in the attraction they had for human females. Bane, a powerful werewolf shifter, had fallen for Adrian the same way, and it had cost his life. Brian knew the way of humans. His conversation and speech wasn't distinct from human speech. After all, it wasn't hard. He had fooled many over the years. No one would have thought he was a shifter. They thought only wolves were shifters. Besides, the way he presented himself, dressed finely in his dark expensive suits, white shirts, silk ties, and Italian shoes, and perfect manners, being a shifter and a lion shifter would be the last thing a human would think of him. Some humans didn't believe shifters existed, and the ones who knew were either dead or kept their secrets for fear of death. Brian stood in the doorway of the bedroom, watching Haley sitting in a chair, and he said, I brought you some berries back for your breakfast. Follow me. He stood waiting for Haley and smiling at her. He walked into the kitchen, with Haley following behind him. Sit. You are a guest, but soon you'll be mistress over everything that's mine. Haley cautiously sat at the counter aisle. She didn't want this. She had been forced into this, and it appeared the lion shifter wouldn't take no for an answer. Even as he had said that she could decide whether she would choose to be with him, he wasn't planning to ever let her go, and she knew it. She didn't see him when he placed a bowl in front of her and poured the cereal into it. She didn't see him when he poured the milk and placed a dish of berries near her. She was busy thinking about what the implications were, consequences she hadn't thought about, which were never seeing Hunter again. Raising the spoon to her mouth and placing a spoonful of cereal in her mouth, she began chewing, and then she cried out, Oh! I can't eat this. Then she jumped from the stool and ran for the nearest restroom and held her head over the toilet and vomited all that she had eaten last night and this morning. With a flushed face and sweating, she glanced up at Brian. What was that? Haley said, her voice ringing with displeasure. You said you wanted cereal. It was cereal. She shook her head. No, the milk. It's just milk. But what kind? It has this awful odor. But that wouldn't make her throw up so violently, and then it hit her. She was pregnant. She had to think. Could she tell him? Should she tell him now? No. Now wasn't the time to tell him. He would surely kill her, but if he didn't and she gave birth, then he would destroy the babies. What am I going to do? She thought. I've always been delicate. You don't want a woman like me. I'm not strong, and I will cause you nothing but trouble, she said, trying to get up from her knees but wobbling. Brian helped her up and cradled her in his arms. He brought her back to bed, and she lay there staring up at the ceiling, trying to decide what to tell him or if to tell him. Can you eat something? No. I don't feel like eating at all. Just bring me some fruit juice if you have any. He rushed to the kitchen and came back with a glass filled with orange juice. You didn't have to bring so much. But I want to. I want to give you everything, and as much as I can." Haley, struck by Brian's warmth, smiled at him. He appeared to be satisfied with only a smile from her. When Hunter only wanted to get rid of her. It took so much for Hunter to realize that she loved him and wanted him. Now she was pregnant, and he hadn't even bothered to come for her. Haley wondered if Hunter had agreed to share Katy with his brother. Because she hadn't heard anything, or the Samsa werewolves hadn't stormed the mansion looking for her. Now she was thinking they had thrown her away. Hunter's father didn't care for her. Wilder had made that clear on many occasions. He saw her as a threat to their pack. Wilder perhaps convinced Hunter that all was lost, and that she was under the protection of Brian, the lion shifter. What is preventing me from falling under Brian's spell? She questioned herself. He wanted her. He acted in a way that he was willing to give up everything for her. But she couldn't ask him to abandon his pride with his wives and cubs, no more than she could abandon Hunter and his pups. There was too much silence, and she didn't want to think anymore. Too much thinking, and she would come to the wrong conclusions. She couldn't wait long without confiding in Brian. Better to get it over with, instead of dying 1,000 deaths. She would die that one at his hands, because she thought Hunter had given up on her, and if he did, she wanted to be dead. "Thank you, but I need more rest. Remember, I had to hike through the woods with bug bites and all. I probably got bitten by something. I'll be okay with a little rest." Brian leaned down and kissed her on the head, and pulled the comforter up to her breasts. Haley's eyes closed, and he walked away from her, then closed the door behind him to the room.